your comedy has a strong connection to your New York roots and your Italian roots.
Very
But
much.
growing up now, kind of in retrospect, do you look back and say like, oh, this all makes sense now. Yep, I had this poignant moment when I was little where I knew I'd be in comedy.
I mean, there was definitely a moment where I knew I'd be in comedy. I never attributed it to being from New York or Italian. That came way later. But I do remember being fascinated by comedy. And I found myself drawn to like the Carol Burnett, the I Love Lucy shows. And I lived with my grandparents. A lot of New York Italians did. And my grandparents would watch that show and I was exposed to it. I think the New York Italian really came to play more recently when I realized that just being who I was, my most authentic self, it sounds so corny because you hear about it all the time. People are like, just be your authentic self. And I'm like, oh, but really was the secret to just relating to people in comedy. People want to feel like they're being represented. And when I'm a New York Italian, I'm representing people not just in New York, but people who moved out of New York, people who feel like their family in Chicago sounds like me, or their family in Rhode Island sounds like me, or Canada. You know, you don't really realize when you're so specific how universal you really are.
100%.